The shackles were silver. That was the first thing Lyra noticed as the guards dragged her down the frigid stone corridor of the obsidian spire. Not iron, not steel, but pure, unadulterated silver that pulsed against her wrists like a living flame. It was a cruel reminder of exactly what she was, and what she was never allowed to be. To the world, she was the Shadow Daughter, a girl without a rank, a wolf without a voice, and now a bride without a choice. The fortress loomed ahead like a gargantuan predator crouched in the mist, all jagged black stone and silver-tipped spires that seemed to pierce the very heart of the storm clouds. Lyra had heard the horror stories since she was a pup. Every wolf in the northern territories knew of the Obsidian Spire. It was the seat of King Alaric Vane, the wolf who had unified the 7 fractured packs under a rule of absolute iron. They said he had crushed 3 rebellions before his 25th year, and that he could scent a lie from a mile away. Lyra's stepsister Seraphina was supposed to be the one walking through these gates. Seraphina was the golden wolf, the pride of the Silver Silt Pack. But Seraphina had fled into the night, terrified of Alaric's reputation. To save their lands from being razed to the ground, Lyra's father had shoved his invisible daughter into a white silk gown and sent her as a sacrificial lamb. "Keep moving, girl," the guard growled, his voice like gravel grinding together. He jerked the silver chain, and Lyra stumbled, her bare feet hitting the rain-slicked stones of the courtyard. The silver burned deeper, and she bit back a whimper. Don't show weakness, not here, not to him. The massive oak doors groaned open and the scent hit her first, pine, cold ozone, and something darker, something ancient. It was a power so dense it felt like a physical weight pressing against her chest. The throne room stretched before her like the mouth of a great beast. Torches lined the walls, casting dancing shadows across banners that bore the Vane sigil, a black wolf encircled by a crown of thorns. And there, at the far end of the hall, seated on a throne carved from a single shard of obsidian, was him, King Alaric Vane. He sat with the lazy, terrifying confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. His massive frame was draped in black leather and heavy furs. Dark hair fell across a face that would have been devastatingly handsome, if not for the absolute coldness in his eyes. Those eyes were the color of a winter storm, gray, merciless, and fixed directly on her. "Closer," Alaric commanded. His voice cut through the silence like a blade, deep and utterly devoid of warmth. The guards shoved her forward, and Lyra fell to her knees at the foot of the throne. The silver shackles clinked against the stone, a pathetic sound in the vast hall. She forced herself to look up, meeting that storm-gray gaze. "So," Alaric began, his voice dripping with contempt, "the House of Silver Silt sends me a replacement, a shadow. Do they think me so blind that I wouldn't notice the difference between the Golden Daughter and the one they hide in the kitchens?" "My name is Lyra," she said, her voice trembling but holding firm. "I know your name," he sneered, standing up. He was a mountain of a man, his presence filling every inch of the room. "I know you are the unwanted one, the one with the stunted shift. Your father offered you as a consolation prize to save his own neck. Tell me, replacement, why should I not send your head back to him in a box?" "Because," Lyra whispered, "if you kill me, you prove that you are exactly the monster the world thinks you are. And if you keep me, you show them that you are a king who keeps his word, regardless of the bride provided." Alaric paused, a flicker of something, perhaps grudging respect, crossing his features before the ice returned. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. "Understand this, Lyra. This marriage is a contract of blood and borders. You will wear my name. You will stand at my side when the court requires a queen, and you will play your part. But you will never be my mate. You will never bear my mark. And you will never, ever be anything more than the placeholder you are. Guards, take her to the North Wing. Lock her in until the ceremony." As she was dragged away, Lyra felt a strange sensation in her chest. Her inner wolf, which had been silent for years, suddenly lifted its head. It wasn't looking at the exit. It was looking at Alaric's retreating back with a terrifying sense of recognition. No, Lyra thought, it's impossible. He hates me. I am just the replacement. The weeks following the wedding, a cold, silent affair witnessed only by high-ranking officials, were a lesson in isolation. Alaric ignored her entirely, leaving Lyra to wander the drafty halls of the North Wing. She was a queen in name, provided with the finest silks and the richest foods, but she was a ghost in her own palace. During her isolation, Lyra found solace in the Spire's ancient library. It was there she met Ilara, an elderly wolf with sightless eyes who served as the kingdom's seer. "You have a scent like starlight, child," Ilara whispered one afternoon, her fingers brushing Lyra's hand. "They call you the shadow, but they don't see the light that cast it." "The king sees nothing but a disappointment," Lyra replied, looking out the window at the snow-covered mountains. "Alaric sees through a glass darkly," Ilara said. "He was betrayed once, years ago, by a woman he thought was his mate. Since then, he has built a fortress around his heart thicker than these stone walls. He thinks by rejecting the bond, he protects himself. He doesn't realize the moon goddess has already woven your threads together." Lyra shook her head. "He's an alpha king. I'm just... me. Wait for the red moon, Lyra. When the sky bleeds, the truth will out." The peace Alaric had fought so hard to build was fragile. While he focused on internal politics, a faction of rogue wolves, led by a mysterious figure known as the Vulture, had been gathering strength in the southern wastes. They saw the replacement bride as a sign of Alaric's weakness. One evening, during a formal dinner where the tension between Alaric and Lyra was thick enough to choke on, the great hall's doors were burst open. A blood-stained scout collapsed on the floor. "The border!" he gasped. "The rogues, they've breached the frost gate. They claim they have Seraphina, and they're coming to reclaim the throne for the true queen." Alaric stood, his dominance flaring so brightly the candles flickered and died. "They dare?" He looked at Lyra, his eyes burning with suspicion. "Did your sister plan this? Is this her grand return, backed by traitors?" "I haven't spoken to her since the night she fled," Lyra cried, standing up. "Search her rooms," Alaric roared to his guards. "If I find a single scrap of correspondence with the rogues, I will execute her myself." Lyra was dragged back to her chambers, but the guards found nothing. Meanwhile, the sounds of battle began to echo outside the fortress walls. The rogues weren't just attacking, they were using forbidden dark magic, a silver mist that dampened a wolf's ability to shift. The battle raged for hours. From her window, Lyra watched as the Blackwood warriors struggled against the silver mist. Alaric was at the center of the fray, his massive black wolf form a blur of shadows and teeth. But even he was slowing down. The mist was poisonous to Alaric's high-level alpha energy. Lyra felt a pull in her gut, a tether she couldn't ignore. Her wolf was screaming now, clawing to get out. For the first time in her life, she didn't fight it. She didn't try to hide her stunted power. She leaned into the darkness. "Open the door!" she screamed at the guard. "The king's orders! The king is dying out there!" she shrieked, her voice shifting into a primal growl. The silver mist had begun to seep into the palace. The guard coughed, his knees buckling. Lyra didn't wait. She channeled every ounce of the pain, the rejection, and the loneliness she had felt into her shift. It wasn't a normal transformation. It didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. As she stepped out onto the balcony, her skin didn't turn to gray fur. It turned to brilliant, shimmering white, the color of the moon itself. She didn't grow into a standard wolf. She became a creature of legend, a lunar wolf, larger and more radiant than any alpha. She leaped from the balcony, a streak of white light against the black stone. When she hit the ground, a shockwave of lunar energy blasted the silver mist away. The rogue wolves shrieked, blinded by her light. Lyra tore through their lines with a speed that made the world look like it was standing still. She reached Alaric just as a rogue was about to sink a silver-tipped blade into his throat. With one swipe of her massive paw, she sent the attacker flying. She stood over the fallen king, her white fur glowing with an ethereal flame. "Lyra?" Alaric's wolf whispered through their mind link, his voice filled with shock and awe. "Fight, king!" she replied, her voice a chorus of moonlight. "Your queen is here." Together they were unstoppable. The black wolf of shadow and the white wolf of light moved in a deadly dance, clearing the courtyard and driving the rogues back into the forest. The vulture leader was cornered by Alaric, but before he could strike, Lyra let out a howl that carried the weight of the moon goddess herself. The rogues collapsed, their dark magic shattered, their wills broken by the sheer purity of her power. As the sun rose over the smoking battlefield, the survivors stood in silence. Lyra shifted back first, standing amidst the ruins in her torn gown, her skin still faintly glowing. Alaric shifted a moment later, his body covered in wounds, but his eyes were entirely different. The storm gray had turned to a soft, shimmering silver. He walked toward her, the entire army watching in hushed reverence. He didn't stop until he was inches away. Without a word, he dropped to his knees. The Alpha King, the man who had crushed rebellions and smiled at death, bowed his head to the replacement. "I was blind," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I looked for gold, and I missed the diamond. Lyra, you aren't just a queen. You are the moon's own grace." "I'm just the girl you locked in the North Wing," she reminded him softly, though her heart was racing. "No." He looked up, and for the first time, she saw tears in his eyes. "You are my mate, the true bond. I felt it the moment you shifted. I felt your soul touch mine. I spent years running from love, because I thought it was a weakness. But you are the strongest thing I have ever known." He reached out, his fingers brushing the fresh mating mark that had appeared on her shoulder. A crescent moon entwined with thorns. "I don't deserve you," Alaric said, "but if you will have me, I will spend every breath of my life proving that I am worthy of being your king. Not your master. Not your captor. Your partner." Lyra looked at the man she had feared, and then at the king she had saved. She saw the vulnerability he had hidden for so long, the loneliness that mirrored her own. She reached out and pulled him to his feet. "Then start by calling me by my name," she said with a smile. "Lyra," he breathed, and he kissed her with a passion that promised 1,000 years of loyalty. The months that followed were a whirlwind of change. Under Lyra's influence, the obsidian spire was transformed. The silver shackles were melted down and forged into a grand archway at the entrance of the city, a symbol that no wolf would ever be enslaved by their own kin again. The silver silt pack was brought to justice, not through war, but through Lyra's firm diplomacy. Seraphina was found living a quiet life in a distant village, and Lyra, showing the mercy of a true queen, allowed her to stay there in peace. But the most beautiful change was in Alaric. The storm-eyed king became a man of wisdom and compassion. He was still a warrior, yes, but he fought for the future, not out of fear of the past. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the battle, Lyra and Alaric stood on the balcony overlooking their kingdom. The people below cheered, their howls a symphony of joy. "You're thinking about the night you arrived, aren't you?" Alaric asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I'm thinking about how the silver used to burn," Lyra replied, leaning back against his chest. "And how now, it only feels like light." Alaric kissed her neck, right over her mating mark. "You saved me, Lyra. In every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," she corrected. And as the red moon rose again, this time a symbol of beauty rather than blood, the king and queen of the north looked out over a world they had changed forever. Wow, what an emotional ride! From the silver shackles to the lunar wolf's glow. Lyra's journey shows us that your value isn't determined by how others treat you, but by the fire you carry within. If you were moved by Lyra's transformation, please give this video a big thumbs up. It helps the algorithm share this story with more of our pack. I want to hear from you. What was your favorite part of the story? Was it the moment Lyra shifted into the lunar wolf, or Alaric's emotional apology? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be hearting my favorite responses. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, click that button and join our community. We have so many more epic tales of fated mates, hidden powers, and royal drama coming your way. You won't want to miss the next one. Until next time, my beautiful pack. Keep your heads high, your hearts open, and always listen to the call of the moon.